misfits.
All right, you ragtag bunch of misfits.
You're a scrappy little misfit, just like me.
Biggest bunch of misfits I ever seen either.
Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit podcast. On today's episode, we're going to be bouncing all over the place. We're going to be talking about open prep. We're going to be talking about the World Fitness Project, a potential Misfit community competition. Going to bury the lead a little bit there. And then potentially end with some things that I like to think about when we cross over into the new year that might be a little bit healthier physically, mentally, emotionally, etc., than kind of the usual shit that people do and say, probably more say than do, related to the new year. So we've had a bunch of not rigid episodes, but episodes that were very much boom, boom, boom going down the line. So I wanted to open it back up to something that was a little bit more free form this week. Before we get into all of that different stuff, happy Open Prep Day. Phase 3 and Open Prep start at misfitathletics.com today, and we have the 14-day free trial live on Fitter. So you can go in, you can get started 2 weeks for free to check out any of our programs really quickly. If you are like 100% positive that you're qualifying for semifinals, kind of top 1,000 athlete in the world in your division, you can get signed up for phase 3, which is the MFT program. If you're 1,000th through 100,000th, make sure you get signed up for that Hatchet program. And then teens and masters, we have our age group program. So head over to misfitathletics.com, get yourself over to Fitter. You can also do that through some link in bio stuff in our socials to get signed up for a 14-day free trial. And as always, before anything serious, we've got a little life chat. What's going on, Hunter?
What's going on? Just finished the last 5x5, the Team Misfit affiliate phase cycle. It worked. It's working.
Yep.
It's getting heavier and got miserable linearly as expected.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and it always works.
What was the range for you? Where'd you start and where'd you end?
Today started at 305 and hit 335 was my heaviest. So
Oh boy.
335 was the test 5 rep max that I hit, which is say below what I would hope typically, but having not squatted a whole bunch, that was a good starting point.
And when you don't like, it's something that's interesting. It's actually like a segue to the final topic of the episode, so we'll forget, but maybe we'll remember. At a certain point, if you're not chasing a number or a competition or etc., you know that you're probably going to lean, or if you're a smart athlete, you're going to probably start to lean towards hitting sets that you're positive you're going to hit and moving really well and maybe standing up faster and creating the force production and creating the stimulus versus flirting with, can I hit this? You know, am I using an all-time max for my percentages from 2001? That kind of thing. So things like this change, and the way that you execute this specific set, I feel like is so important in relation to talking about whether you're happy about a number or not.
Yeah, I actually, as I was putting weights away, I was like, I think this is, and I don't think, I know for sure, this is the one program that I've done the most as far as like lifting cycles and stuff like that. Like did some of the Misfit, the lifting cycles back in the day. I did the volume back squat phase probably once or probably twice total. Done like West Side speed and heavy days, and that works. Like, that's not the sweet spot for me personally, and I think it's actually like a pretty small segment of the population that works really well for. But yeah, this is I think I've done the Texas method or like and modified Texas method, you know, without the 5 rep max day every week. By far the most time. So, and I can think back of like, yep, I've hit this, I've hit that. I remember like the first time I hit 365 for 5 a long time. That's a kind of a benchmark sort of weight as far as plate math is concerned. And then, so the ranges, I think to your point, like because I've done it so many times, it's like I know fairly quickly whether or not it's going to be like, hey, is this going to be a phase where you push for a new 5-rep max sort of thing, like an all-time sort of deal, or is this going to be like, I kind of know where I'm at in my fitness this year, this time of year, whatever it is, and say like, okay, like I'm just trying to get heavy, get some weight on my back. It's going to make my legs stronger, going to improve my fitness everywhere else. So whether or not it's a new all-time 5-rep max or 5x5 or whatever is way less important to me, having done this so many times and knowing that's like,
well, and it's
you can't win them
proven.
all.
Like a lot of people can't see the forest through the trees. You get distracted by the shiny object. People over a long enough time horizon look at the whiteboard and want to know why your scores are what they are, and it's probably because you don't get obsessed with, okay, I didn't like the 335 number or whatever it is, so now I'm going to squat 9 times a week, and my conditioning is going to go to shit, or my knee's going to start bothering me. Any of these like number of things are going to happen.
Yeah.
And when we ask you, how are you the fitness robot? You're like, I've worked out 5 or 6 days a week for 10,000 years. It's like, okay, like in doing the thing the way that you do it, I think is how stuff like that actually happens. Like, be consistent across the board.
Yeah, I think so. And I still do, like, I'll still film I filmed some sets. I'm working through like a little bit of a hip thing. So I like feel like I'm squatting maybe slightly off center, trying to avoid that and like just work on little things. So I still, I've still got videos on, 1, the Coach's Eye app, so that's how old the videos are, and 2, from 2016 to 2017 of like, here's a set of 5 front squats from April 27th, 2016. Like, good job. But yeah, I'll still throw the camera up to check, kind of do a little like form check on myself, because I'm usually lifting in open gym. But yeah, retest week for the affiliates on Monday.
So mine might sound boring. Maybe it is boring. I don't know. But if you've listened to this podcast long enough, you know that I like to talk about like systems and standards that I have to put in place for myself. Otherwise, I might spin off the earth. I'm a kind of a freewheeling kind of guy. And you realize over time you want a different outcome to certain things. You gotta come up with a different path to get there. So one of the things that I want to focus on this year is paying closer attention to some like financial stuff, but more on like a day-to-day kind of a thing. And again, like, I'm not necessarily doing this because I think I don't have any money or I think I have too much money or anything like that, but it's more like I'm almost 40, I've got a kid, like maybe I'll pay attention to the fact that I could spend like thousands of dollars less per quarter by just fucking like locking in on certain things. So the 2, probably not surprising, the 2 things that I'm working on right now are meat and coffee.
Bro,
Meat and coffee. So
there's got to be other places to trim the fat.
you don't want to know what my meat and coffee budget is currently.
Now I'm very concerned. That is the
So with the coffee, and maybe I'll remember to do this on Instagram, I am looking for the 4-pound bag of whole bean coffee that gets me down back into the like $1 to $2 per cup range, because coffee has gotten absurd. It doesn't matter where you go. Like, we're talking like used to be in the $10 range for a decent bag of coffee, and we're talking 15 to 20. And when you do the math, you're like, now for a pour over, I'm spending $3 a cup, or whatever it is, just too much
at home. Which is like, the narrative has always been stop buying. I mean, I was never buying the fucking unicorn razzle dazzle from fucking Starbucks or whatever it's called. But like, so what I did, a seasonal delight,
is what I would have done back in the day is I would have ordered a bunch of 4-pound bags of coffee, and if they sucked, I would have thrown them in the trash. So I have ordered 4 16-ounce bags that have
very nice.
an affordable 4-pound bag option.
Right.
And I'm going to test all 4 and decide which one or ones I'm going to go with from there. And then we can get back down into the like $1 to $2 range per cup kind of a situation. So that's
What's
step
your
number
cup
1.
Size? How many how
Well,
many
I was
BGs
doing
is
it based
like a
on
cup?
400 grams of water. That's like not actually a standard cup of coffee. Standard cup of coffee is closer to like 300 grams,
Okay.
like that kind of thing. But like, if I make a rule about how many cups of coffee I'm allowed to have, I ain't doing no 300-gram fucking cup of coffee. Sorry. So that's
I'm allowed to have
whatever.
one 14,000 gram cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Got it.
So that's 25 grams of coffee beans. So then you just do the math on 25 grams divided by however many grams are in the bag. So I'm interested to see if any of these are good. And maybe I'll take some suggestions from people on social media. And by maybe, I mean I won't probably unless I trust you, because you're going to hit me with some fucking dark roast trash that you put fucking superfood peppermint creamer in, and we're not going to ever be able to talk again. So let's just not go there. Okay.
And we got a front runner. Do you have a front runner brand wise?
The 2 brands that I found that have good reputations but could just be because they're good marketers are Black Rifle and Collectivo. And Collectivo is actually one that we've had a bunch of out in Madison. So they've got, I think, 2 or 3 light roasts that they have a $75 4-pound bag of, and then Black Rifle's very similar. So I ordered those, and I'll let you guys know how they are. And maybe, just maybe, because like the if you have unlimited resources or just are like, this is where I'm going to spend my fucking money, I suggest ordering some 4-pound bags of Tandem. You can order them online. It's fucking great, but it's over $100 for that. So over the course of the year, every 4-pound bag, that's an extra $25. You know, it goes up for sure. And then on the meat side is bad. And one of the reasons why it's bad and
Because you don't have a Costco membership like a grown up.
oh,
Uh-oh.
just wait for it. Just wait for it. So I get frustrated with this whole like meal prep situation because it's hard to buy and cook in bulk. Like I've gotten better about it because I cook the same meat for my son as I do for myself. And like I'm not gonna be sketchy about like how long I let the meat sit in the fridge before he eats it. Like for me, when his expires, I eat the leftovers kind of a thing, and I've never had an issue. So it is what it is. But it's fucking hard to like. I mean, you know, your schedule is not that much different than mine. We're just doing different things throughout the course of it. But like when you gotta cook a bunch of meat 2 or 3 times a week, like at night, it just gets old, right? And if you want to eat, if I want to eat 200 grams of protein a day, and I want, like, let's say I'm on a cut and I'm not giving myself any liquid calories or something like that, like that's a decent amount of meat. Like you make this giant bag of chicken or whatever, and then it's just gone. And then also, you know, what comes with that and buying it in lower quantities is the cost. So I finally went to Costco. Finally got the membership, finally went to Costco. My wife was looking, so I did have to buy the organic chicken because it's for Carter. I don't know how a living being couldn't be made of organic material. It's a fucking chicken. And it's chicken breast, so there's no fat. So what are we talking about?
Yeah.
I will probably go like 1 and 1 the next time I go there. One conventional, one,
don't worry about it, Maya.
organic, like that kind of thing.
It's also not that much different, at least at, like, I go to Sam's Club, but it's not.
It's not It's not a massive difference. So I went to Costco, couple bucks a pound cheaper on the chicken, which is nice compared to what I normally get. Way cheaper on the ground beef. Problem with the ground beef is they're organic and they're grass-fed are both 85/15. And like I'm probably not going to donate that many of my macros because of how much protein I'm trying to get to just beef. Like I would rather cook in more olive oil and put that over the top for, you know, how good it is for heart health and stuff like that. So so I got the
You're
chicken.
looking
I got
for
the
a leaner ground beef.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know
And I
you
don't
can.
eat the meal itself is not low in fat, but I would rather get my fat from another source, both
Yeah.
for health
I'd
and
have to add
flavor
it, then
flavor
be forced to
profile.
eat it in the beef.
Exactly. But I'm looking at the steak because that's one
Dude,
thing.
right?
That's one thing that's an issue with me is I just do chicken breast and ground beef because it's easy. But
Yeah.
then that's the day where you've like your resources are limited in your brain and you're like, I don't fucking want this again. And then you know, you got to get a pizza from Monty's. So I'm looking at it and it's like it's interesting because it's still fairly expensive, not compared to other places. Steak is just expensive, like
Yeah.
across the board.
Yeah.
So I find these fucking top sirloin hockey pucks. Like you could
yeah.
kill a guy with one of these things.
Yeah.
They're like twice as thick as a fillet. And like you could butterfly it and just pan sear it probably, but because it's higher protein, lower fat, you're probably not going to break the tissue down.
Yeah.
So I took these. This actually happened because my Traeger, something electrical in it, shit the bed. But I took all 6 of these things, 6 pounds, and I put it in the oven, and went 250 degrees in the oven until I got the steaks up to 120. I would normally, if I was going to eat it in the moment, I'd probably go 125. But if I'm going to reheat these things over the course of the week in different ways, I like to go a little bit closer to rare. Man, when you go like a top end medium rare and then you cook it in the pan after, like chop it up, it's not great.
No.
So 120, and it took a while, but that's actually a good thing. So like one of the reasons why you do the reverse sear is because you're breaking, like that slower cooking is breaking a lot of the stuff down, protein structure, you know, fat, like that sort of thing. So I did that, and then I reverse seared all of them. And if you
On the grill or
are
in the pan.
in the pan, yeah. So oven at 250 until they reach 120, and then hot pan, little bit of oil, and like they came out fucking perfect, which is great. But they're so far doing really well reheating in like different ways. So like night one, it was just steak and rice, like
Yeah.
how you would normally eat a steak. But then like another night, it was like, okay, I'm gonna go like Mexican. So I took, you know, my 75 grams of protein, I chopped the shit out of it, and then I, you know, spiced it up and all that good stuff, and it was fucking great. So if you know how to cook, if you trust yourself, it would be really annoying to cook 6 pounds of steak and have it come out shitty, because it takes a while. But if you trust yourself, yeah, if you trust yourself to do it, I think next time I will probably go 3 pounds cooked in the same way, and then I'll probably put 3 pounds in the slow cooker, because then it's just like or instant pot, whatever, pressure cooker, like then it's just, that's a quicker meal situation.
Yeah.
Kind of go pull.
Do you have
on
an
that
air
side.
fryer?
I do.
There's so I experimented with air frying a steak that wasn't like
I hear
the
it
highest
goes.
quality.
I hear it goes well with a ribeye.
I've heard it goes better if you go straight from frozen, which is very strange.
I've heard that.
didn't-
Well, I mean, if it slows it down, then the idea of
I think the if it's defrosted already and you put it in the air fryer, I think it just dries it out. I think I'm not sure what it is. It was just a little bit tough, but I've heard air fry from frozen.
I have heard that
and it
too.
comes out,
Yeah.
and it comes out really good. I'll have to experiment with from frozen, but yeah, I was just trying to think of easy, and that's obviously
The
easy.
the
Can't
ribeyes
cook those
from
super well though.
Butcher Box are really fucking good, and like I would say medium tier affordable. And those I've heard, like, because somehow they make the exact same steak every time, which is a little
Yeah.
terrifying. But like what they send you is so similar that I've heard that from the freezer Butcher Box ribeye to the air fryer, it's like you know, whatever, a 6 or 7 out of 10 steak. In like, you fucking walk in the house, you throw that thing in there, you go about your business, and then
Set
you
it,
have a pretty
forget
good
it.
steak.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So
All right.
Yeah. I
Proud
would
of you for
say
getting on that Costco game though. Good
Yes.
quality too, right? And like
$7.99 a pound. It's the blade tenderized. That's the name of the game at the like your Sam's Club and your Costco. They have this machine with a trillion tiny needles, and they send that bad boy down into all your steaks so that they're pre-tenderized, so that you're not, even if you do suck at cooking, you don't need to fucking replace your molar once you're done. All right. I want to so open prep for Hatchet athletes in phase 3 for MFT athletes starts today. This podcast drops Monday, January 13th. Don't forget your 14-day free trial on Fitter. I know a lot of people listen to this podcast right when it comes out on Monday, and they're going to see the volume and the programming for tomorrow. And I want to talk a little bit through what our expectation of that programming and what that day would look like from like what we would consider a competitor's standpoint. So the only two things that are on Hatchet Open Prep week 1, day 2 are squat snatch. We have 9 sets of squat snatch, echo bike flush, 1K between each set. And then we have 2.5 minute AMRAPs in an interval. That's the whole day. So you're looking at 15 minutes of potential time under tension or time spent at an elevated heart rate. And I think a lot of people would look at that and be like, is that it? That's what you got for me? When I look at this, I see a 5-minute barefoot overhead squat hold before the squat snatch. I see 3 minutes of couch stretch per side. I see working on your ankles, getting that banded distraction and plopping that, sandbag up onto your knee and getting out over your toe. And then into, that session, you've got 20 to 30 minutes of rest between sets. So if you got that, if you get 9K of echo biking as a flush between those sets, to think about that. So we are already trending towards, a lifting session like this with the warm up is 45 to 60 minutes for a competitor. And then we roll over to the interval, and I see a 15-minute machine warm up where you go from, and you could reverse this order depending on your priorities as an athlete for sure. A lot of athletes like to get in and get after it and then lift so that they feel really loose. So we have a 15-minute machine warm up for this. So you're looking at, your 5.55 where you go from basically cold all the way up to like a zone 2 pace. We have warming up the actual movement. So going through your kip swings, checking in on your movement progression with the toe to bar, 275/185 deadlift here. We're activating the posterior chain. We're, banded walks around the gym and our clamshells if you struggle with the low back issues, and our glute bridges. And then, maybe, the little sort of primer piece where it's, a practice round or whatever it is. And then we do this piece and it only takes 7 minutes with the rest built into the interval. And then you have to finish the curve, as they say in the endurance community. We got to get popped back onto those machines and basically take ourselves from like peak heart rate towards the end all the way back down to that resting, close to that resting heart rate before we, look into doing some mobility, etc. This could very, very easily take 2 hours plus if you're doing your mobility to cool down and you consider the time it takes to make sure your hydration's where it's at and you're doing your post-workout nutrition. So this is not like I have to restrain myself. So as a customer, if you're like, this is what they're giving me, this is me showing restraint. If I get to crack my knuckles and write 19 Metcons, I will. I will do it. I want to do it. But it's like, how do we, again, we talked about it in the last episode, how do we build the habits early when the volume is low so that they really hold us up and hold us to a standard and make us perform better when it gets high? So I saw that day, and I can think of some of the people, even in Discord, being like, where's my program? You missed something. Why isn't there 92 pieces? Like that kind of thing. And this is very intentional and meant to be the kind of day where you show up and perform like a pro and see what that feels like as an athlete.
Question for you, because I would, if I were a listener, I might ask this. Let's say I squat snatch first, and you said it yourself, I just did 9K of echo biking.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that I need to do my 555 before that piece as far as a warm-up, like elevating the heart rate, if I just did 9K of echo biking?
I would say it depends on the athlete. If you are...
Certainly if we're splitting the sessions up, right? If we're doing 2 separate sessions, you need a separate warm-up.
And
but let's
and
say I'm going to do both.
Sure. You're going to do it. So I'll give 2 examples. One would be, and I don't want to discount this individual because your competitive aspirations and your free time don't always line up, right? Could be a fucking beast, and I just don't have that much time. The 9K of echo biking and the squat snatch set you up for a really good situation going into the deadlift toe to bar. I would still want to see some activation, and I would probably do 1 5-minute chunk where I got myself onto a rower and started to get, again, to oxygenate the tissues in the area that I need to just to warm up the body in that way. But we go like 4 or 5-minute chunk there. That being said, when I look at this, there's an opportunity for the person who does have the more free time to finally work themselves into fantastic positions in the squat snatch, and then they could probably stand to, get into dragon pose and pigeon pose afterwards, and, maybe that's the time that you jump into the sauna or whatever it is. So, I don't think they need to be separate sessions as much as, if you have the time, I want you to think about them singularly and how you would approach them if that was the only thing you were going to be doing on that day. Yeah. But, again, you could be an absolute monster, and you had your humble pie, and you're like, I am going to follow Hatchet, but I am fucking making online semifinals, but I don't have the time to do this. What you're saying is absolutely fine. Not a big deal there. I would rather see an athlete take that time to cool down, to enhance their recovery, than to do the extra 15 minutes, do the piece, and then have to run out the gym.
Yeah.
I'm going to put you on the spot, Hunter, for one element of our essentially random episode. Is there anything in your coaching, leadership, training, personal habits, is there anything recently that you have changed your opinion on or dug into from a research standpoint, or what do you feel like you're trying to lock in on right now? And you could go your training, your coach, whatever, anywhere.
Yeah, I'd say maybe more so on the coaching on the affiliate side. And I think I will typically be I'm the type of person that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to in most instances, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to try to optimize it and do it as the most optimal and the most efficient way possible. If I go to the golf simulator, I'm not going to have fun per se. It's fun, but
drink
I have
beers and eat
an
nugs.
intention. Yeah, I'm not going there to drink beers and eat nugs, but I'm going to go okay, I'm going to hit a range session for the first handful of minutes that I'm there, and then I'm going to go onto a course and I'm going to practice X, Y, or Z. That's fun for me. Working towards something is fun. I take that and that extreme into coaching in a lot of ways, and project that, I would say, onto my affiliate athletes and coaches, to the point where it's hey, I don't care about anything else other than is that squat perfect? Is it to standard? Is the depth good? Are they having fun? Don't worry about that. They'll have fun. They're going to have fun on their own. Coach the shit out of them, hold them to an exceptionally high standard, that sort of thing. I don't want to say that I've backed off as far as the standard go, but I think the standards thing goes, but I think that I've really leaned a lot more heavily into telling coaches like, hey, make sure that this hour is like a really good time. And I even talked to Nicole Christensen a little bit about this. And I alluded to the fact that I was like, I'm just such like, am I the anti-fun guy? Am I the guy who's just like, oh, we don't have fun in Hunter's classes, like, because he's too strict and straightforward and just like, militaristic about how he runs class? And she gave me kind of alluded to what she'll do is be like, hey guys, I need you to give me like 2 minutes of your time. Like, give me 2 minutes of undivided attention where we're actually going to pay close attention to what we're doing. We're going to work on our movement or whatever. And then once you start squatting, like, have some fun, like that sort of thing. So to the roundabout way of answering your question is that I think and I'm still working on this. I wouldn't say that I've crossed the bridge on that fully, but it's much more a mindset of like people, especially at the affiliate, like I see them almost every day. It's not like, I think a lot of times when people think about like high standard, they almost think like, oh, I need to run an L1 style class every single time. And that's like a good model to have. The problem with thinking about it in those terms is that when you're running an L1, these are entirely brand new people that seminar staff is working on and evaluating. So when you see a seminar staff member like drilling the shit out of some poor bastard in an overhead squat hold with a PVC pipe overhead, and it's just like, that's a perfect overhead squat, and Flowmaster is still adjusting and tinkering with this person. It's like, that's an awesome standard to have, as like, this is what we're shooting for. But at the affiliate, it's more realistic that you have seen these people move like dozens, if not hundreds of times before. So you have a better idea of like what this person needs as far as like corrections and motivation and all that sort of stuff. And it becomes a lot less about the technical corrections and making sure that athletes are like resting exactly 3 minutes in between their sets, and you're staying in between 75 and 85% of your 1 rep max, because that's the optimal range in order to get strong. It's like, motherfucker, no one cares. And at the affiliate level, it's even less important that we're dialed into the exact perfect nuance of that sort of thing, and more so like, hey, we've got the general idea here, like, come in for this 1 hour of fitness, have fun, interact with your friends, and, hopefully coaches has the wherewithal to let the people mingle and let them have fun, and know when the time is to pull the athlete aside and be like, hey, come here, let's talk about that set of back squats. Like, that was dog shit. And I'll still tell them it's dog shit, but it's a much looser, like, kind of friendlier, like,
yeah.
Let's make sure that this is a fun environment. We're not here to like be militant about the 5x5 progression over these 6 weeks. Like, show up, let's have a good time, let's move well, because I want you to come back tomorrow and not get injured. But like, I just want you to keep coming back and enjoy the class that you're taking. And I think I'd say that's the biggest thing that I've personally like had to kind of shift my mindset on in the last few years. And that also means like shift the mindset, do it in my own classes, also communicate that expectation to coaches, because they are either consciously or subconsciously doing what they think I want them to do, which
right.
If everybody's a militant prick like me, like, that's not a very much, like, everybody's going to get really fucking fit, but it might not be very much fun.
Right.
And I think we can still work on improving that area of, of our affiliate experience.
If you
and
don't
that starts
think
with me.
that is a piece of the puzzle, then your head's buried in the sand. And I'm probably just thinking of it this way because it's part of something that I put in the notes of what I wanted to talk about today. But if we took all of the, if we watched 100 of our favorite coaches and we took all of the attributes that we could come up with from each different one that they were really fantastic in, and put it into sort of a matrix of like, let's say these are the 9 attributes of a great CrossFit coach. You've made the, I don't know what that fucking Thanos' glove is called, but you put all the gemstones in it and snapped your fingers and Robert Downey Jr. Yeah,
whatever.
So if you take all of those and you look at it and you're actually honest about whether you have the fixed or growth mindset in relation to each one and can be honest with yourself, that's how you can figure out how to be a better coach. And one of the ways that you can figure out whether you have a fixed mindset on something is, okay, so you look at it and you say, no, I don't have a fixed mindset on that. Like, some people struggle with that exercise because they're seeing it from their own perspective, not from, sort of behind themselves. And, as happens in a lot of coaches' lounges, someone walks in to the coaches' lounge and makes a comment about class. Jimmy's class was so fun. Like, I really enjoyed that. And if you immediately go to, Jimmy don't know shit, I know this, he doesn't know that, like, his warm-up was dog shit, blah, 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 then you have a fixed mindset in relation to your ability to deliver the amazing information that you have in a digestible form, in a way where people enjoy doing it, right? If you don't have any fucking members, it doesn't matter how many knowledge bombs you can drop if they don't want to be there, that sort of thing. And then you figure out as a coach, when I lean into this, I actually sometimes have a little bit more fun, and I want to fucking go out there and do this class because it's like a two-way street. It's being received in the way that I'm sort of putting it out there. So I think it's the kind of thing where I think it would be important, because we're talking to listeners and not just one-on-one, for you to realize that you are a very good coach, but this is an area where you could improve, versus the narrative of, like, am I a prick?
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, like that kind of thing. Because, again, like, you do take this very seriously, so if that's feedback that you get, you might lock in onto that one thing. Like, you wouldn't be the head coach at a community-based business if the narrative was Hunter's a prick and I don't want to take his class. Like, that would not actually happen. So, again, if you're listening to this and you're identifying with Hunter, you have to give yourself, it's like, I'm trying to remember where this comes from. It might be a Buddhist thing or whatever, but if you're wondering whether you're a good person or not, you're probably doing pretty well. Like, shitty people don't fucking worry about whether they're a good person.
Yeah.
They might tell themselves that they are, like that kind of thing. So if you're worried about how you're delivering one piece of that matrix, then there's a really good chance that you're on the right path, because, like, we're never going to be perfect. We always want to iterate. We always want to improve. So I think that's a really good way to, like, I'm sure with you it didn't have anything to do with the clock turning over, but I just see all the shit that gets put out there early in the year, and I try to, like, direct people into something that could actually make them better over the course of the year.
Yeah. I mean, I came in, I don't usually coach 7:30 on Tuesday, but I came in, got in a handful of minutes early, and I, like, it was fucking great. As soon as I opened the door, I can just, like, feel the walls shaking, and I know Mark's coaching. I almost got up to take 6:15, and in hindsight, I wish I had, because, like, as soon as I walked in there, I was fucking ready to go walk over and hit my first set at 3:15 without a warm-up set, and it was just, like, the fucking walls were bumping, like, people were lifting heavy, grunting. Mark's, like, screaming at somebody to not be an idiot, but not in, like, a nice, like, in the way that Mark connects with his people, and he's an excellent I'd say he's a better coach than I am. But he, like, it was just like fuck, that's a great fucking vibe. And I know it's also something that he's working on as well, and I think he probably just kind of took the ball from what, kind of how we've run things, especially when he got started. But he and I have talked a little bit about that too, and just making sure that, members are enjoying their time, morale is high and whatnot. And I do think that it starts, that specific example, I think you can, I don't want to say the only way, but I'll say it for the sake of argument, the only way that you can get away with that is if you have the baseline technical knowledge to, like, if all else fails, you do have the technical knowledge to bring athletes an excellent, like, hour of fitness that is going to move the needle for them, maybe in their fitness on the day, maybe it's in their brain and how they think about fitness, maybe they learn something new. But to your point, like, I don't think I've ever heard athletes talking after class, mingling, and say to themselves, man, I learned so much today about the back squat. it's like the conversation is, oh, that was wicked fun. Like, I love the game that we played at the beginning of class, or I love like like people. It was just like a great vibe or whatever. It's about people don't talk about the success of their 5x3 clean and jerk. They talk about how much fun the class was, and if you kind of think that's obvious, but
I like to think about it as like a recipe. Like the member's not going to be like, that hint of nutmeg really took it over the edge. It's the whole thing.
Exactly.
It's the entire experience that they have, and they're telling you about this was good, this was bad, this was somewhere in the middle, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think I hate that the people can't hear what I'm about to say, but like taking your class is like going to like a 3-star Michelin restaurant. It's like you enjoy the meal, you know that the chef's like a no nonsense kind of guy, but you enjoy it, and that's why you keep going back.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think every coach has to, like, everyone had. If I walked up, if I was in front of the 5 p.m. class and I was just being super silly and like, I don't know, cracking like jokes and shit like that. I don't know.
Why don't you just down a bottle of NyQuil in his office?
Yeah. Like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? Like, why is he so happy? It's like that. You still have to, like, everybody's got their own personality, and you play to your strengths. And it's not about swinging so far in the other direction. So I understand what you're saying, but like you have to have, equal parts of the 9 things that makes, you're just like the 10 general physical skills. You're only as fit as you are proficient in all 10 of those skills. It's the same thing with coaching. Like, you can be the most technically proficient, knowledgeable individual ever, but if nobody likes taking your class, it doesn't fucking matter.
Truth. True.
Yeah.
All right. So it's fine. I've known
What
for a
about
little
yours?
while.
Do you have an answer to that question?
I do, yeah. It's a little general, but it's like super exciting for me. So I am currently teaching at their request, one of our remote coaches how I program, and from like sheets.google.com knew like every single detail of how I program. And the idea of challenging myself to explain an idea that at one point was a hypothesis, like, did it materialize into what I wanted to? Was it tested and put through the ringer? Because when you program in the way that we do for competitors, it's fucking complicated, and there's a lot of moving pieces, and you might have had an idea at one point that you really liked based on a theory that you had or one athlete, that sort of thing. So now going back through all of this and explaining all of it, like checking myself on every individual element of why I do something the way that I do, and then like I'm going through and pretending that I'm programming semifinals prep right now with this coach, and I've got my notes off to the side of sort of how I go through things. But when I'm making those notes, like, I have to believe in the thing every single time, because I just, like, I'm not going to, like, I don't know why I would. Maybe it would be the kind of thing where I think I'm smarter than everybody, but like, I'm not going to make something up. I'm not going to like sell something. Like, I want to really be able to explain why I do this and how it works and where it came from. So it's been really exciting for me to go in and audit those things in a way where it's like, you really have to explain this. You like, and certain things have changed, which is nice. So like, oh, does this actually make sense? Or there are certain things that are a rule that need to be a bit more fluid for the sake of other parts of the program improving. Like, you get into program design, and when you make something really pretty, it's hard to take and I'll look over at my board, like, split jerks are on Monday. Well, the program could be way better if 2 of the weeks they went to Thursday. Like, that sort of thing. Yeah. And like your aerobic rotation and your bitch work rotation and, zone 2 running is on Mondays. It actually fits a little better on Thursdays until we hit this volume, and then it needs to change to Monday. So things of that nature. So I just a bit of a like reinvigoration of, I am very thoughtful about the way that I program, but I'm swimming in my own perspective when I'm building a lot of this stuff. So to be able to challenge those things is something that's super fun for me because it makes you feel more creative in the moment, not like you're just going to go replicate something that you've already done.
Yeah. That's a good one.
All right. So we've known for a little while, but it was just announced. We're recording this on the 7th. Just announced yesterday that Paige got an invite to do the World Fitness Project, which is exciting. 20 men, 20 women for year one. I basically, so that honestly, this is kind of
roster of women.
This is kind of an exercise. I'm going to attempt to explain this to Hunter so that I understand it. It is fairly straightforward, but because they're explaining how they're going to iterate on it, I'm just going to, so for like Paige Semenza fans, let's see if we can tell you what's going on here. Hunter, you're actually very familiar, much more familiar than any of us to a tour sport.
Okay.
Kid loves the PGA Tour.
Just got started, guy. I need Scheffler back in the mix though. Still got a hand boo boo.
Yeah, he's okay. I'm gonna go 209.2.
Yeah, good news.
yards.
He still has another like 212 weeks that he can do nothing and still be the number one player in the world. But
yeah. So the idea in general is that we talk about it all the time. These athletes train their ass off, and if one workout goes wrong in a qualifier, in a quarterfinal, in a semifinal, there's a chance that you're waiting until next year. That is real tough. And even though there is your Rogue, your Wadapalooza, your Dubai, etc., the prestige of, sort of your ranking in the world and where you sit and everything, I think is really important to someone with a competitive mindset, even though the prize purse, those other places are pretty good. So the idea, as far as I've understood it thus far, is there a version of quote unquote functional fitness that could be a tour sport? Because year one hasn't happened yet, they're inviting their 20 pros on the men's and women's side, so 40 total athletes. So they are based on, Rogue has that comprehensive ranking system, and then I think there are a few kind of wild card invites based on certain things. They are asking people to sign on to this, and it's pretty close to the top 20 men and women in the world in the sport. Based on finishes. There are athletes, there's a little hubbub about whether Colton Mertens would get invited because he got screwed on his muscle up lockout at whatever his semifinal last year, that sort of thing. But basically pretty damn close to the top 20 men and women. So where it gets cool is they're going to do online qualifiers for their tour events. So there's 2 tour events this year that are standard tour events and then 1 final, so 3 total in year one. There would be 30 athletes competing in each division, and the online qualifier gets the top 10 people in that qualifier compete in the pro division. So they get just as much of a chance at points for the next season and to qualify for the final as someone that got invited. So those 10 people go in and do that. So that's your pro division. Athletes 11 through 30, so basically the 20 athletes after, are going to compete in the challenger division, which also gives points for the season. So like you could the example that they gave was you're not invited, you qualify and then take like 5th place in the pro division in event 1. You don't qualify in event 2, but you're in the challenger division. You can still accumulate points that would potentially get you into the top 30 for the final, that kind of thing. And I would like to see it expanded because you're talking about 50 athletes, which is pretty good, but still fairly close to the games. I've always liked the idea of a system that shows who's next in like a really well-constructed way. The stories just don't really get told about your 10th through 20th at semifinals, that kind of thing, like who's on the horizon for athletes, that sort of thing. So I like the idea of that. So again, year one, 2 regular events plus the final, the top 30 in points. And again, this is how I understand it, so I'm getting it wrong. It is what it is. The top 30 athletes in points over the course of those first 2 events go to the final. You get double points in the final and double money, and your total points, the top 20, get their pro card for the following year.
Say that again?
So year 1, they had to do the invites. Year 2 is 100% based on points.
Okay.
So your event 1, event 2, your points there, you get double points for the final. All of that gets added together, and the top 20 get invited to sign a contract for year 2. They're guaranteed to get invited to all the events, and then you just start this thing over. So it's truly merit-based in terms of how long are their competitions, how many events are there, what does their programming look like. That's, to me, what creates the nuance and why it would be really important to only base it on the results of the World Fitness Project and not something else.
How many events? I'm seeing...
3 total events in year 1, 1 final, 2 where there's like the online qualifier and all that good stuff.
Dates and locations.
Year 2.
The 2 World Tour events have yet to be announced. However, it's rumored that the tour events will be in May and September with the finals in December.
And I've been told that it's U.S., then Europe, then the finals are in the U.S. That's what I've heard.
And then you might have said this. Can I qualify to get into one of those events? Is there like an online qualifier for me to get into those events? What is that?
Yes.
Or is
So
that
you do an
based on
online
your points
qualifier
accumulated in the Rogue system?
So no. So the Rogue system, or however they came up with their 20 and 20, that just locks those people in. They're automatically invited. 21 through 30 is the top 10 from the online qualifier. So Hunter Wood, no invite. Fuck you guys. I'm fucking going for blood. I'm going to qualify out of the online qualifier, and then I'm going to come show you that I'm better than the athletes you invited.
Okay,
that's how that's the
and then I can
challenger
get
system,
points.
essentially.
And if I
as
sneak
you
myself
come in,
into the top 20, I can get my tour card, so to speak, for the following season.
yeah, if you get into the top 30 in the first 2 events, you get invited to the final, and then you have double points. If you're in the top 20, when it's all said and done, you get your pro card if you want it for the next season, if you sign the contract.
Got it. And that just means you're automatically set up for the first 2 events, not the final. You get, is the tour card or the card include like
yes,
yes,
every event.
Okay.
Yeah, you automatically get that invite.
And is the winner announced? Is the winner the most points after the final, or is it who wins the final? Is it like the points just get you to the final, and then whoever wins?
That's a good question. The way that I understand it is if you take first in the final, you're the champion, and then your points get you the pro card for the next year. I don't actually know. I don't know if there are 2 different variations of it. Like I finished first in the season versus I finished first in the final.
Yeah, is there a scenario where I finished 4th in the points rankings, but I won the final, so do I win?
That's a good question. I actually don't know, because I know it's double points, so the idea is if you do win the final, it's weighted much heavier, and you get double the money, and I do know that's based on placements. So if you get first, you get $70,000 or something like that. Like for that specific competition. But is there a prize pool for coming first in the points? I don't actually know. I feel like people look at this and don't ask those questions because they're like Adler and Toomey.
Yeah, sure.
They're going to win both. But if we get a little bit more parity in the sport, I think that becomes a question. So I'm not actually sure how that part works.
Is Toomey participating? She's not on the list. I don't know if you were just throwing her name because she's the GOAT, but
I think that the order of how they're releasing these is strategic for sure. I think they're announcing the athletes as a slow trickle to get people excited, and supposedly no one turned them down, according to their interviews.
Okay.
Yeah.
Count 15 women's on this barbell spin article. So
yeah,
that's weird. Yeah, I wonder if that's the right. Would you
first or last
release? Yeah, is it like, hey, Tia Toomey's in, and all of a sudden everybody's like, I'm in? Or is it like, Tia Toomey's in, like, all right, see ya?
Cool.
I'll go.
Thanks.
I'll
I'm
recess.
gonna go
I'll
sign up for the
recess.
Challenger division.
Yeah, I'll just go sign up for fucking underwater
Fantastic.
basket weaving.
So it's cool. I mean, I think the long-term vision of it is they get paid to have a pro card outside of prize money. They get travel stipends. Like, it eventually is intended to be something where these athletes can actually make a living
Yeah.
on this, or at least supplement it enough that they can go do it. Because obviously traveling, at the very least, you're looking at, if you do both seasons, once this expands, I mean, you're looking at every other month you're traveling, something like that, or on average every other month, that kind of thing. So definitely something to kind of take into consideration. But like, anytime there's an opportunity for our athletes, like, aside from how I feel about HQ or the CrossFit Games versus this or that, like, I'll give something like this the benefit of the doubt. They have to, like, execute. The events have to be well run. The programming needs to make sense. The judging needs to be good. Like, if they want to be considered a professional entity in this way,
what's like the mission of the? Oop, I'm getting cut out here.
it says trying to reconnect.
Yeah, I see it. Can you hear me? Am I still recording?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so CrossFit Games, like, find the fittest man and woman on earth. Pretty straightforward, like, goal. I'm curious to know what the World Fitness Project, like, what the mission looks like, what that is. And is it just to try to professionalize the sport of functional fitness? But again, like, I think the benefit to what I will continue to say, regardless of what people think about CrossFit, is, like, CrossFit has the methodology. That is the proprietary, that's the secret herbs and spices that separates CrossFit from any other bullshit training program. The F45s, the Orange Fitnesses, all that sort of stuff. It's like, the goal is to make you fitter. We have a definition of what fitness means. We have definitions with how to get there, and it's like, we know what health is. We know what the intention is. I would want to know what are we trying, what's the World Fitness Project trying to achieve? And the benefit to saying CrossFit, like the CrossFit Games, the point is to find the fittest man and woman on earth. Well, there are a bunch of other trickle-down effects, the things that you said, like, well, we need to know what the tests are, and the tests need to be well-rounded such that the actual fittest man and woman on earth win. When you don't have that, when it's like grid, all of a sudden you get a bunch of specialists, or, what is the purpose of the World Fitness Project aside from provide these, super high-level fitness athletes to make a professional athlete's wage?
It's tough to know how much of what they're saying is public relations versus long-term goals.
Yeah.
I think you have to be careful when you're, doing your first press tour, like they've been doing. They're being very cordial thus far and saying, like, we wanted this to, like, a lot of people think that this is a response to the 2024 CrossFit Games, and they're saying that the idea and the formation of this was prior to, and really just like an alternative option for athletes to be able to go compete more and earn more money, because the athletes want to be able to do that, and fans of the sport want to be able to see more than just what they see so far. So I think that will be an important situation. And, like, if it truly became a competitor, as we've seen in professional sports, typically there's a merging of sorts, a buyout of sorts, like that kind of thing. So that kind of situation would be on the table. So the only thing I'll say about it is I'm excited that Paige is doing it, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But I'm like, I'll be right back on this podcast being like, they worked out for the longest they worked out for was 11 minutes, and I'm mad. Just like I did after a recent competition. So exciting that there's kind of a positive spin on something going on in the competitive community right now, and hopefully Wadapalooza into the Open into this event one, qualifier thing gets us, back in a place where it's like, we don't know exactly what the future is, but we know we're not fucking going to stop doing this. So let's get back to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, it could just benefit CrossFit, to be honest. Is right. I mean, like if nothing else, the World Fitness Project at least has people's interest peaked in the sport of fitness. Whereas if that didn't exist and the only kind of spotlight was just on CrossFit HQ, it's like, I don't know, not a whole lot of positive headlines coming from or heading their way. So if nothing else, maybe it takes some heat off of HQ, and if it is successful, maybe it reinvigorates interest in CrossFit's role in that, or like you said, maybe sometime down the road there's some sort of merging or a combined effort to give athletes that avenue for professional competition.
So last year was year number 1 of an event in Colorado Springs that was run by a longtime Misfit follower, Misfit VIP, and it's called the Purple Mountain Throwdown. And one of the goals that I sort of had for this, like right off the bat, was it would be really cool for there to be the kind of competition that had a little bit of like a Misfit like community event feel to it. And year 1 we programmed the event, got really good feedback on sort of how that was executed and what the competition looked like. And I was unable, due to other commitments, to be as involved as I'd like to be. But I'll say right off the bat, we have no financial link to this, but I love the idea of a lot of misfits from all over the country, and who knows if it's all over the world, do you have the means to get over here for a competition? But I would love for a ton of misfits to sign up, and then for Preston to be able to come to me and say, look at this list, and I hop on a plane and go out there, and I would be happy to do pop-ups and free seminars and give away t-shirts, whatever it is. But I think this is a really good opportunity for us to be able to say, like, you guys should sign up for this thing so that we can all hang out, because we know the programming's going to be good, because we wrote it. So something that we can kind of get behind from that standpoint. So it's June 21st through the 22nd in Colorado Springs. I think you can fly into the Springs, but it's also not that far from Denver, and Denver's a pretty major hub, so you could fly in there. And registration opens actually in a couple of days. So just go to social media.
Is this a team event?
So there is individual, team, and scaled versions of both on that side. Team is partner, though. I believe it's male, female, female. I should know that. But off the top of my head, based on last year, that's what it'll be. So there's options for everybody. And again, I'm not saying this because, I'm asking Preston to give me 10% off the top of how many tickets we can get. I just like the idea of congregating in a competitive atmosphere. It'd be something I think that would go really well alongside us doing a training camp or two every year, that sort of thing. So, we'll talk about it a little bit more, over the course of the year, and we can chat about it in Discord. But I would love to see a ton of misfits sign up for the Purple Mountain Throwdown. I feel like June, that's 6 months away, have time to sort of make some plans to be able to get there and do it. And again, if Preston comes to me and says, look at these names, these names, I'm going to get on a plane and get my ass out there and hang out with the misfits. So, just something I wanted to throw out there. It's something that I think could be a cool event for misfits to gather together every year.
It's a pretty cool venue and setup that they had, right? Too.
Yeah.
Some outdoor stuff. Last year we programmed, what was there, a trail
trail 5K where you had to snag a sandbag and run up a mountain at one point.
So it's not, you're not just exercising in one spot under a
Right.
pull-up bar. It's a pretty cool setup that they have.
Yeah, I'm sending your asses back outside. Spoiler alert. You will not be staying inside. If that Rocky Mountain air needs to be taken into the lungs directly from the trail I'm going to make you run up. So registration opens on January 15th. Competition is June 21st through the 22nd. And actually, if you're a local athlete, if you're in that area, they're going to be doing some pop-ups at gyms where we are going to be programming some group-style workouts that are going to be really shitty and have hints towards what the programming is going to look like in them. Okay. I'm a little torn here. So we are at 1 hour and 4 minutes into the episode. We're normally, I don't know. Sebastian, what are we, an hour 15, hour 30? Like, what are we normally at on these?
Yeah, like hour 10, hour 20.
All right. Hunter, you see this stuff that I have laid out here. Do we try to explain it in the next 10 minutes? Or do we save it for another episode?
I feel like this honestly could be an episode on its own.
Yeah.
If I'm being totally honest. So
That's fair. That's fair. I could go to the bottom.
I was going to say, is the perfectionism bullet point here, is that a standalone topic?
Yeah, it's kind of a separate thing.
Yeah, I feel like that middle chunk is a good potential outline for an entire episode, not a 12-minute.
So we'll tease that a little bit. An expectation setting exercise that I try to do in January of every year after coming up with a bastardized version of it on this podcast. We're sort of talking about different athletes and what they go through from the expectation standpoint over the course of a season, and then having some pretty intense conversations with athletes. You start to understand that psyche and the ability to maybe rewrite the narrative a little bit. So we'll save that for another episode. This is something from a course that I'm currently taking, where at the beginning of so essentially the way that it works, I receive a written version of talking about perfectionism, read through it, and then there is a group call. And it's one of those things where, sort of alluded to it earlier in the episode, where you read the thing and you go, that's not me. Like, I'm just not like that. And then you hear the drawn out version of it in different examples and you realize, like, there's probably a place where you're doing this to yourself. And I just thought the way that it was explained had this unique spin on it. Because a lot of people who struggle with perfectionism in a certain facet of their life would not consider themselves a perfectionist generally across the board, that kind of thing. So it's like someone asks you, Hunter, are you a perfectionist? What is your answer to that question? Black and white.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
I don't think so. It's complicated.
Sure.
I would say
right.
Might be closer to one than I would be above average.
Got it.
Perceived closeness to it.
Yeah.
Than most,
right.
But
I actually think so. By the definition of the way I'm going to explain this, someone like that might consider themselves a perfectionist is the opposite. So the idea would be we can visualize in any part of our life where we want to be. You talked about a certain aspiration as a coach. We talked about aspirations that people have with back squats or diet or whatever it is. And the only version that should exist or that we should work towards is there is a standard that we are currently unable to meet, and we iterate and we fail and we succeed and we take 2 steps back and 9 steps forward, and we do that whole messy thing to try to improve ourselves. And then wouldn't you fucking believe it, that mountaintop that you set, you got to it and you looked up and there's a way bigger mountain next to it, right? So we just this process where we're iterating over and over and trying to get there. So someone like that is always trying to improve might consider themselves a perfectionist. But when I'm thinking about it from this newer perspective that I have on it, it's the person that sets this crazy, unrealistic expectation for themselves on January 1st that they're going to measure every grain of rice, every gram of food that they're going to eat for the next 365 days, and they're going to be fucking shredded, and they're going to get it perfect, and then they fuck up and they're done. And it's like, you don't know what nutrition coaching is. Nutrition coaching is, I got a little bit better, and then I fucked up, and you helped me get back on track. The fucking up is literally an incredibly important part of the process to iterate and figure out what works for you so that you're not on a diet and you're just figuring out the best way to live your life as a healthy, happy human being. So it's like, where in your life do you set those unrealistic expectations? Like, I'm doing 2-a-days now. Why, Bob? Bob, there's no reason for you to do fucking 2-a-days, pal. And then he doesn't do 2-a-days once, and you don't see him in the gym for a month because he feels shitty about himself. So it's like, that's the version of, so it's like, where in your life are you doing that as a human being? And it reminds me of something that we've already hinted towards, is the matrix that I try to do, which is another exercise of like, where in my life do I have the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset, and how can I improve on that thing? Because it's always going to be there. There is something, like, by definition, you have a fixed mindset across the board if you think you don't have one.
Yeah.
like it's complicated like that.
Yeah, I think the point you made about like, hey, the failing element, or instead of measuring every grain of rice today, like, I fucked it up, and instead of viewing that as like, oh, I failed, it's like, if you're making the claim that that's a failure, then the only version of success that you had was 100% adherence 100% of the time until you met the goal exactly how you defined it, as opposed to the idea that like, you cannot add 5 pounds a week to your 5x5 back squat forever in perpetuity. That'd be really cool, but it doesn't happen, right? There have to be weeks where, like, this is just too heavy.
It can also
like,
be boring.
I know
I'm going to hit this.
Yeah, exactly.
Easy.
And it's like, that's part of the, I think that's obviously kind of part of the journey, is that failure, and the, like, you learn from that, and then you make the adjustment moving forward, and then lo and behold, you adjusted and you were trending in the right direction, and then because you adjusted, you hit a failure point that you didn't anticipate, and it's like, okay, well, I need to adjust off that, and then all of a sudden we keep moving forward again, and it's that constant iterative process. And I mean, there are so many areas that it's like, as soon as you run into like a little bit of resistance, you're like, fuck, like, and it's difficult, like, and we talk about it all the time as if we're like these fucking gurus about like, yes, I've encountered the resistance. This is a fantastic opportunity to test my mental fortitude. It's like, more often than not, it's like, for me, it's like, throw the papers up in the air and like, fuck this shit. Like, I'm out of here. And like,
and then the pushback to that is, the triggering question is, okay, Hunter, so you're fucking perfect. This is the first time you failed. You're a fucking perfect human being. Congratulations. How's that going for you? And then you can start to examine like, because that's why I do the matrix thing, because you can be fully bought in on the correct version of this concept in so many areas of your life and still not realize that you're acting like a fucking buffoon in another spot, where you're like, no, you're perfect. Every time you go out there and you're like, watch this Metcon's going to be 6 minutes and 37 seconds, 6:36 final rep. Ta-da! I fucking told you I'm perfect, right? And like, that's a pretty triggering question, I think, for a lot of people that struggle with this. It's like, I actually feel the opposite about myself. I feel like I am the biggest fucking failure on earth because I couldn't find my scale and I said fuck it and I had a cookie. Like, so you're done with cookies. You're never gonna have a cookie again. You're perfect. Congratulations. So, just thinking about it again from that perspective, and in getting far enough down the rabbit hole in these things to check yourself is incredibly important. And you're going to keep finding them. It is just still going to be places where you're stuck, and there's places where you're going to improve. And it's like the never ending linear progression of all things. But I think a very important thing to check yourself on, like, that's why I love that we don't have a huge beginners class here in January, because I go to take a piss and I walk out and there's 30 people back squatting in a room together that don't have a New Year's resolution related to like, I'm going to the gym 100 times a week this year. They're just back doing the thing. And it's like, hell yeah. Some days I feel good. Some days I feel bad. Some days I'm strong. Some days I'm weak. Like, I need to stretch more, stop drinking, whatever the fuck it is. Like, that iterative process is so on display out there in the gym that I think it's easier for us to buy into in different parts of our life, because, like, here it's almost like, please just show up. We got it.
Yeah, you just got examples of
this
it every day. Like every single person every day is an example of that, and it's like, all right, well, if they can do it, like I can do it. And I think that's part of the obviously the harnessing of the community, whether it's here or your community at your gym, whatever it is.
Frank misses one fucking day, 2 months in, and he tells you he's canceling his membership. How are you going to respond to that as a coach? And then as a coach, you also are a human and have a personal life. Where are you doing that shit? Where are you doing that?
We had a beginner who, let's see, did he take beginner's class? I think he took beginner's class, and then he came to the gym twice, like once or twice for class. And he was probably like a 45-year-old dude who like was like a trail runner. So he's reasonably fit, but not very strong, not particularly mobile, lots of things to work on, like, I don't know, every single other person who comes into the gym. And he emailed us. He was like, I'm canceling. My ego can't take having to scale these things. And it was like, yikes.
The alternative is never getting better.
At least he's honest that my ego can't take it. So I'll give him maybe a little bit of credit there. But it was like, less than 3 classes. And
damn,
he had to get, it was like, oh, we're going to modify this. We're going to use some lighter weight here. And like, it's just the email, like, I'm going to cancel. I'm going to go focus on something else. My ego can't take it. He was, like I said, he was straightforward about it. He specifically blamed his own ego for
when keeping it real goes wrong. Like,
I guess so. Yeah, I don't know. That's like that's job
like
for admitting
self-aware to a fault, I guess. Damn. That's rough. All right, dude who did that, please come back. We got you. We can fucking do this. You can't do it on your own.
Come on, Jeff.
Come on, Jeff. All right. I don't know that we can have final thoughts to a meandering episode like
final.
That. Yeah, they're all final.
Final thoughts.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Misfit podcast. You can head to misfitathletics.com. Get yourself over to Fitter for that 14-day free trial. Get started on Open Prep or Phase 3. You can also head to teammisfit.com and get signed up for our affiliate programming. See you next week. Ooh.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. 1 week later is Phase 4 for the affiliates. So I get the affiliate on board. January 20th is the start of the next training phase.
Fuck. All right. I know what our next episode is. We'll see you next week for the Team Misfit episode. See you guys.
Later.